Hey guys, it's Cassidy again, and today we're going to read the last part of Cinder by Marissa Meyer. Chapter 37. She lay on her back, listening to the steady tapping of the metal fingers against the white resin floor of her white resin prison cell. Of all the thoughts that should have been taking up her mind, a single moment captured in her thoughts, stuck on endless repeat. Market day, the humid air, the smell of Chang Sasha's sweet rolls permeating the city square. Before any of this had happened, before Peony had gotten sick, before Levana had come to Earth, before Kai had asked her to the ball, she was just a mechanic, and he was the prince with all the charms she pretended to be immune to. And he was there, before her, while she tottered on a single foot and tried to calm her rapidly beating heart, how she could barely meet his gaze, how he leaned forward, forced her to see him, smiled. There, that moment, that smile. Again and again and again. Cinder sighed and changed the tempo of her tapping fingers. The net was rife with vids from the ball. She had watched exactly 4.2 seconds of the footage via her net link before shutting it off. The footage had made her look like a madwoman. Surely every human on Earth would bid her good riddance when Queen Levana tried to claim her and took her back to Luna for her trial. She heard the guard's footsteps muffled on the other side of the cell door. Everything around her was white, including the brilliantly bleached cotton jumpsuit they'd put her in when she'd been forced to discard Peony's destroyed gown and the bits of silk glove that hadn't already been melted or ripped away. They hadn't yet bothered to turn out the eye-straining lights either, leaving her restless and exhausted. She was beginning to wonder if it would be a relief when the Queen came for her, if maybe she would at least be allowed a moment's sleep. And she'd only been there for 14 hours, 33 minutes, and 16 seconds. 17 seconds. 18. The door clunked, startling her. She squinted at the tiny window that had opened up in the door, seeing the shadow of a man's head in the iron gate. The back of his head. None of the guards would look at her. "You have a visitor." She propped herself up on her elbows. "The Emperor?" The guard snorted. "Yeah, right." His shadow disappeared from the grate. "Kindly open the door if you would," said a familiar voice in a familiar accent. "I must speak with her in private." Cinder climbed onto her one foot, leaning against the glass-smooth wall. "She's under top security," said the guard. "I can't let you go in. You must speak with her through the grate." "Don't be ridiculous. Do I look like a threat to security?" Cinder hopped to the window and bounced on her toes. It was Dr. Erland, holding a pale linen bag. He still wore his lab coat, with the tiny silver spectacles on his nose and wool hat on his head. Though he had to crane his head back to meet the guard's gaze, his stance was undaunted. "I am the leading scientist of the Royal Etymosis Research Team," said Dr. Erland, "and this girl is my prime test subject. I require blood samples from her before she leaves the planet." He whipped a syringe out of the bag. The guard staggered back in surprise before folding his arms over his chest. "I have my orders, sir. You have to obtain an official release from the Emperor to be allowed entrance." Dr. Erland let his shoulders slump and tucked the syringe back into the bag. "All right, if that's protocol, I understand." But instead of turning away, he fiddled with the cuffs of his sleeves, and his expression momentarily darkening before he flashed another grin at the guard. "There, you see?" he said, his voice sending an odd ripple down Cinder's spine. The doctor continued, the cadence of his words as soothing as a song. "I have obtained the necessary release from the Emperor." He swooped his hands toward the cell door. "You may open the door." Cinder blinked as if to clear cobwebs from her mind. It seemed Dr. Erland meant to get himself arrested as well, but then the guard turned toward her with a dazed expression and swiped his ID before the scanner. The door opened. Cinder stumbled back, catching herself on the wall. "Thank you kindly," said the doctor, entering the cell without turning his back on the guard. "I'll ask that you give us a bit of privacy. I won't be but a minute." The guard shut the door without argument. His footsteps echoed off down the corridor. Dr. Erland turned around and snatched a breath when his bright blue eyes fell on Cinder. His lips parted momentarily before he turned his head away and squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them again, the look of amazement had softened over his features. If there were any doubt, it is gone now. It may do you good to practice controlling your glamour. Cinder pressed a hand against her cheek. "I'm not doing anything." The doctor cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Don't worry, you'll get the hang of it." He cast his gaze around the cell. Quite the predicament you've gotten yourself into, isn't it? Cinder flicked her finger toward the door. You have to teach me that trick. It would be an honor, Miss Lynn. It's really quite simple. Focus your thoughts, twist your subject's thoughts toward you, and clearly state your intent. Internally, of course. Cinder frowned. It didn't sound simple at all. The doctor waved away the look. Don't worry. You'll find it comes quite naturally when you need it, but we haven't had time for lessons. I must be quick before anyone's suspicions are raised. My suspicions are raised. He ignored her, his gaze sweeping down Cinder's form. The white jumper, bulky and loose over her slender frame, the metal hand dinged and scratched from her fall, the multicolored wires that dangled from the cuffed pant leg. You've lost your foot. Yeah, I noticed. How's Kai? What? Aren't you going to ask how I am? You look fine, she said. Better than usual, actually. It was true. The fluorescent lights of the cell took 10 years off his features. Or, more likely, she realized, it was the lingering effects from using his lunar gift on the guard. But how is he? Confused, I think, the doctor shrugged. I do believe he was a bit smitten with you. To find out you were, well, it was a lot to take in, I'm sure. Cinder ran a frustrated hand through her hair, tangled from 14 hours of nervously bunching it up in her fists. Levana forced him to choose, either marry her or hand me over. Otherwise, she said she would declare war based on some law about harboring lunars. It seems he made the right decision. He will be a fine ruler. That's not the point. Levana won't be satisfied with this decision for long. Of course not. Nor would she have let you live for long had he chosen the marriage. She very much wants you dead, more than you realize. Which is why she must believe that Kai has done everything in his power to keep you confined and is willing to give you over to her as soon as she returns to the moon, which won't be long now, I think. Otherwise, there could be some horrible consequences for him and the Commonwealth. Cinder squinted at him. It seems to me like he is doing everything he can to keep me confined. Indeed, he twiddled his thumbs. That complicates matters, doesn't it? Why don't we sit? You cannot be comfortable standing on one foot like that. Dr. Erland sank into the cell's single cot. Cinder slid down the wall opposite him. How is your hand? Fine, she flexed her middle fingers. The joint on my pinky is busted, but it could be worse. Oh, and hey, she gestured at her temple. No hole in my head. I'm still happy about that. Yes, I've heard how the Queen attacked you. It was your cyborg programming that saved you, wasn't it? Cinder shrugged. I guess so. I received some message about bioelectrical manipulation right before I'd never gotten that message before, not even around your glamour. It was the first time a lunar had made you do something, other than simply believe or feel something. And it seems that your programming worked just as it was meant to. Another impressive decision by your surgeon, or perhaps it was Lynn Garen's prototype that did it. Either way, Levana must have been caught quite off guard. Although I suspect the fireworks display you put on may not have endeared you to many Earthens. I don't know how to control it. I didn't know what was happening. She pulled her knees up to her chest. It's probably a good thing I'm in here. There's nowhere out there I would fit in, not after that. She gestured to some non-existent space beyond the white walls. Good thing Levana's going to put me out of my misery. Is she, Miss Lynn? That's a shame. I was hoping you would have inherited more gumption from our people. Sorry, I seem to have lost my gumption when my foot fell off during a live net feed. The doctor wrinkled his nose at her. You worry so much about such silly things. Silly? Dr. Erland smirked. I came down here for a very important reason, you know, and we haven't got all day. Right. Cinder grumbled as she rolled up her sleeve and extended her arm toward him. Take as much blood as you want. I won't be needing it. Dr. Erland patted her elbow. That was a ruse. I'm not here for blood samples. There will be lunars in Africa to test if I need them. Cinder let her arm sink back into her lap. Africa? Yes, I'm going to Africa. When? In about 3 minutes. There's much work to be done, and it will be difficult to complete in a jail cell, so I've decided to go where the first case of leishmaniasis was documented, in a small town east of the Sahara Desert. He spun his fingers through the air as if gesturing at an invisible map. I hope to find some carrier host and convince him to become part of my research. Cinder unrolled her sleeve. So why are you here? To invite you to join me there. When it's convenient, of course. Cinder scowled. Gee, thanks, Doc. I'll check my calendar to see when I'll be available again. I hope you will, Miss Lynn. Here, I have a gift for you. 2 gifts, in fact. Dr. Erland reached into the bag and pulled out a metal hand and a metal foot, both gleaming beneath the bright lights. Cinder's eyebrows shot up. State of the art, said Dr. Erland, fully customized, plated with 100% titanium. And look, like a child with a new toy, he fidgeted with the hand's fingers, revealing a hidden flashlight, a stiletto knife, a projectile gun, a screwdriver, and a universal connector cable. It's a pillar of usefulness. The tranquilizer darts are stored in there. He opened a compartment on the palm, revealing a dozen skinny darts. Once your wiring synchronizes, you should be able to load it with a simple lock. That's fantastic. Now when I'm on the chopping block, I can at least take a few bystanders down with me. Exactly, he chuckled. Cinder frowned, irritated, but Dr. Erland was too busy ogling the prosthesis to notice. I had them made especially for you. I used your body scan to make sure I had the right dimensions. If I'd had more time, I could have done a skin graft, but we can't have everything, I suppose. Cinder took the parts when he handed them to her, inspecting their craftsmanship with trepidation. Don't let the guards see those, or I really will be in trouble, he said. Thanks, I sure am excited to wear them for the last 2 days of my life. With a sly grin, Dr. Erland cast his gaze around the small cell. Funny, isn't it? So much advancement, so much technology. But even the most complicated security systems aren't designed with lunar cyborgs in mind. I guess it's a good thing there aren't many of you around, or we might have a reputation for jailbreaks. What? Are you crazy? Cinder said, voice dropping to a harsh whisper. Are you suggesting that I should try to escape? In fact, I am a little crazy these days. Dr. Erland scratched at his lined cheek. Can't be helped. All that bioelectricity with nowhere to go, nothing to do? He sighed whimsically. But no, Miss Lynn, I am not suggesting you should try to escape. I am saying you must escape, and you must do it soon. Your chances for survival will drop drastically once Levana comes for you. Cinder leaned back against the wall, sensing the start of a headache. Look, I appreciate you care about me, I really do. But even if I could find a way out of here, do you realize how livid Levana would be? You yourself said there will be horrible consequences if she doesn't get what she wants. I am not worth starting a war over. His eyes brightened behind the spectacles. He looked young for a moment, almost giddy. Actually, you are. She cocked her head, squinting at him. Maybe he really was mad. I tried to tell you when you were in my office last week, but you had run off to see your sister. I'm sorry about your sister, by the way. Cinder bit the inside of her cheek. Anyway, you see, I had your DNA sequenced. It informed me that not only are you a lunar, not only that you are not a shell, but also something of your heritage, your bloodline. Cinder's heartbeat quickened. My family? Yes. And? Do I have one? My parents, are they? She hesitated. Dr. Erland's eyes had saddened at her outburst. Are they dead? He pulled his hat off. I'm sorry, Cinder. I should have gone about this a better way. Yes, your mother is dead. I do not know who your father is or if he is alive. Your mother was, shall we say, known for her promiscuity. She felt her hopes shrivel. Oh, and you have an aunt. An aunt? Dr. Erland squeezed the hat in both hands. Yes, it's Queen Levana. Cinder blinked at him. My dear girl, you are Princess Celine. Chapter 38. Silence filled the sterile white air between Cinder and Dr. Erland, filled the fogginess in Cinder's head. The confusion did not leave her face. What? The doctor reached forward and put his hand over Cinder's. You are Princess Celine. She jerked away from him. What? I know, it seems unbelievable. No, it seems that's impossible. Why would you joke about this? He smiled softly and patted her hand again, which is when Cinder realized her vision was clear. No orange light was plaguing her. The breath left her. Her gaze fell to the empty wires poking out from her ankle. I know it will take time for you to come to terms with this, said Dr. Erland. And I wish I could be here to help you through it. And I will. I'll tell you everything you need to know when you get to Africa. But right now, it is imminent that you understand why you could not let Levana take you. You are the only one who can dethrone her. Do you understand? She shook her head, dazed. Princess, don't call me that. Dr. Erland wrung the hat in his lap. All right, Miss Lynn, listen to me. I've been searching for you for so many years. On Luna, I knew the man who brought you to Earth and performed your surgery. I tracked him down in an attempt to find you, but by then he had already started to lose his mind. All I could get out of him was that you were somewhere here in the Commonwealth. I knew I was looking for a cyborg, a teenager. And yet there were so many times when I thought I would go crazy myself before finding you. Before being able to tell you the truth. And then you were there, suddenly, in my lab. A miracle. Cinder raised a hand, cutting him off. Why? Why did they make me a cyborg? Because your body was too badly damaged in the fire, he said, as if the answer were obvious. Your limbs couldn't have been rescued. It's amazing you were able to survive at all, and that you've managed to stay hidden for all these. Stop, just stop. Cinder flexed her beat-up prosthetic hand before folding it around the fingers of her brand-new limb the doctor had brought her. Her eyes darted around the cell, her breath coming in short gasps. She shut her eyes as a wave of dizziness washed over her. The draft, she whispered. You set up the draft to find me, a cyborg in the Eastern Commonwealth. Dr. Erland stirred, and when she dared to look up again, guilt had filled his eyes. We've all had to make sacrifices, but if Lavana isn't stopped, releasing the new prosthesis, Cinder covered her ears and buried her face against her knees. The draft, all those cyborgs. So many people convinced it was the right thing. That it was better them than humans. Once a science project, always a science project. And he'd only wanted to find her. Cinder, I'm going to be sick. Dr. Erland pressed a hand to her shoulder, but she shook it off. Nothing that has happened is your fault, he said, and now I found you. We can begin to make it right again. How can I make anything right? Lavana's going to kill me. Gasping, Cinder lifted her head. Wait, does she know? Her memory answered her first. Lavana at the top of the stairs, frightened, furious. She hid her face again. Oh my stars, she does know. Your glamour is unique, Cinder, so much like Queen Shannari's. Lavana would have known right away who you are, although I doubt anyone else has figured it out yet, and Lavana will keep it hidden as long as she can. Of course you will waste no time in killing you. I'm sure they are planning your departure at this very moment. Cinder's mouth grew dry. Look at me, Cinder. She obeyed, and even though the doctor's eyes were breathtakingly blue and filled with pity and almost comforting, she somehow knew that he was not doing anything to manipulate her mind. This was just an old man who was determined to dethrone Queen Lavana. An old man who had somehow placed all his hopes on her. Does Kai know? She whispered. Dr. Erland shook his head, sadly. I cannot approach him so long as Lavana is present, and this is not something I can send via a comm. She will have taken you before I have a chance to see him. Besides, what could he do? If he knew, he would release me, and risk Lavana turning her wrath against his entire country. Lavana would find a way to kill you long before you had any hope of taking back the throne. Kai would be a fool to do something so rash, not without a plan. But he deserves to know. He's been looking for her. Many people have been looking for you. But finding you and being able to reinstate you as queen are two very different things. I have planned for this moment for a long time. I can help you. Cinder gawked at him as panic gripped her lungs. Reinstate me as queen? The doctor cleared his throat. I understand you are frightened right now and confused. Do not think too much. All I'm asking is that you find a way out of this prison. I know you can do that. Then come to Africa. I will guide you through the rest. Please, we cannot let Lavana win. She couldn't respond, couldn't even begin to fathom what he was asking of her. Princess? An heir? She shook her head. No, I can't. I can't be a queen or a princess or... I'm nobody. I'm a cyborg. Dr. Erland folded his hands together. If you won't let me help you, Cinder, then she will have already won, won't she? Soon Queen Lavana will take you away. She will find a way to marry Kai and become Empress. She will wage war against the Earthen Union, and I have no doubt be victorious. Many will die. The rest will become slaves, just like us Lunars. It is a sad fate, but unavoidable, I suppose, if you are not willing to accept who you truly are. That isn't fair. You can't just throw this on me and expect me to be able to do anything about it. I don't, Miss Lynn. All I expect for you is to find a way out of this prison and come meet me in Africa. She stared at him, her mouth agape, as the words gradually seeped into her brain. Escape from prison. Go to Africa. It seemed almost simple when he said it like that. The doctor must have seen something change in her face, for he lightly tapped her wrist again. Then stood with the groans of old joints growing older. I believe in you, he said as he reached the doorway and rapped on the grate. And whether he knows it right now, Kai believes in you too. The cell door opened. Dr. Erland tipped his hat to her, and he was gone. Cinder waited until 2 sets of footsteps had ricocheted down the corridor before shuddering and collapsing over her knees, holding her hands over her ears. Her brain was downloading information faster than she could sort it. Old articles about the princess's disappearance, interviews with conspiracy theorists, images of the scorched rubble of the nursery where her burned flesh had been found. Dates, statistics, the transcript of Lavanna's coronation as the crown was passed to her. Next in line for the throne. Princess Selena's birth date, 21st of December, 109 TE. She was almost a month younger than she'd always believed. It was a small fact, an insignificant fact, and yet for a moment she had the distinct impression that she had no idea who she was anymore. No clue who she was supposed to be. And then came the cyborg draft. All the names of those who had been drawn flashed before her. Their pictures, their ID numbers, their birth dates, the dates they'd been pronounced dead, honorably, for their sacrifice for the good of the Commonwealth. She heard a clock ticking inside her head. Cinder's breath came in jagged gasps as the information flooded her brain. Panic churned in her stomach. Bile seeped into her mouth, burning as she swallowed it down. Lavanna would come for her, and she would be executed. That was her fate. She'd been resolved to it. She'd been prepared for it. But not to be an heir. Not to be a queen or a savior or a hero. It would be so simple to let it happen. So simple not to fight back. Amid the jumbled information clattering through her head, her thoughts landed again on the same quiet moment captured in time. Kai's carefree smile at the market. Huddling in a ball, Cinder cut off the net link. The noise silenced. The images and videos snipped to black. If she didn't try to stop Lavanna, what would happen to Kai? Though she tried to block out the question, it continued to plague her, echoing in her thoughts. Maybe Erland was right. Maybe she had to run. Maybe she had to try. She felt the prosthetic limbs in her lap and wrapped her hands around them. Lifting her head, she looked up at the grate in the prison door. The guard had never closed it. A tingle passed down her spine. A strange new electricity was thrumming beneath her skin, telling her she wasn't just a cyborg anymore. She was lunar now. She could make people see things that weren't there, feel things that they shouldn't feel, do things they didn't mean to do. She could be anyone, become anyone. The thought both sickened and frightened her, but the resolve made her calm again. When the guard returned, she would be ready. As her hand stopped shaking, she slid the stiletto knife out from the new titanium-plated finger and maneuvered the blade against her wrist. The cut was still fresh where she started to remove her ID chip before, so they would not be able to track her. This time, there was no hesitation. Soon, the whole world would be searching for her. Lynn Cinder, a deformed cyborg with a missing foot, a lunar with a stolen identity, a mechanic with no one to run to, nowhere to go. But they would be looking for a ghost. Alright guys, and that's it. Let us know what you thought in the comments or in the Discord, and I'll see you guys next time.